The biggest dog that ever roamed the earth. In a world of Minpins and Chihuahuas, anybody who walks by with a German Shepherd looks like they have a humongous dog. In fact, when you see a Great Dane walking along with its owner, you may feel like that's the biggest dog in the world. Now, they stack up quite nicely against the wild canines of the world, but even still, there are wolves that are bigger than that. And that's just when we talk about the living canines of the world, because if you want to know about the biggest dog that ever walked planet Earth, you have to go back a lot further. And this particular canine, he's going to be a lot bigger. Today's canines. Before we dive into that biggest dog ever, we need to get a sense of what we are comparing him to. We need to get a sense of today's dogs. As we mentioned, Great Danes are some of the biggest dogs around today, biggest domesticated dogs. They may stand 25 to 28 inches tall, and they can weigh between 120 and 170 pounds, sometimes even getting closer to 200. St. Bernards tend to fall in the 120 to 180 pound range, and there are Mastiffs that regularly hit 120 to 160 pounds. Even some Mastiffs, when they get humongous, can exceed 200 pounds. So, any dog that weighs as much as or more than the average human, that's obviously quite big. There are also wild canines that are of quite large size, and they easily outdo the German Shepherds of the world. And where domestic dogs have wide-ranging weights and sizes, the averages of these wild canines tend to be a bit more consistent, and on average, they're some of the largest canines in the world. The third largest wild canine is the African wild dog, ranging between 80 to 100 pounds, a muscular hunter of Africa. The second largest wild canine is the red wolf, found exclusively in North Carolina of the US, and they can range between 90 and up to 110 pounds. And then there's the largest wild canine of all, the grey wolf. They're usually 5 feet long, sometimes closer to 6 feet long. The average weight of these powerful hunters is about 150 pounds, but plenty have been known to reach 170 and even 180 pounds. Grey wolves are found in northern areas all across North America, Europe and Asia. North America seems to be the land of the large canines nowadays, but that's just the start of it, because you need to know what the continent of North America had been littered with so many years ago. Big dogs of days past. North America has been littered with large canines over the years. Living alongside grey wolves, but going extinct about 13,000 years ago, were dire wolves. Dire wolves were similarly sized to grey wolves, but were, on average, about 25% heavier. Dire wolves and grey wolves both descended from an even larger canine that was present all across North America. That would be the Armbruster's wolf. The Armbruster's wolf lived during the Irvingtonian stage of the Pleistocene epoch. They spanned a great deal of time, from around 1.9 million years ago to about 250,000 years ago. You thought these 5 to 6 foot long wolves were impressive. The Armbruster's wolf sometimes reached 7 feet in length. The Armbruster's wolf was different from grey wolves and dire wolves in one key detail. He was not a pack hunter. He was a solitary hunter. Quite odd for a canine. Then again, when the Armbruster's wolf was alive, he was the largest canine alive. However, he still wasn't the biggest ever. Living before Armbruster's wolf in North America, there was another canine called Osbornodon wangi. He wasn't as big as these other wolves, but he was still powerful and ranged between 50 and 80 pounds. If you plopped him down along with today's canines, he'd probably be the fourth largest wild canine in the world, and believe me, you wouldn't want to domesticate this guy. There was also Elurodon taxoides, who roamed much of what is now western and central United States. He averaged about 80 pounds, often exceeding that, and he was a bone-crushing dog. Many called him hyena-like, as he carried many similarities to bone-crushing hyenas today. He lived around 16 million years ago, existing all the way until around 5.3 million years ago, from the Middle Miocene to the Late Miocene epochs. And then how about the canine whose name translated to devouring glutton? That would be Borophagus diversidens, a humongous canine of North America who averaged 200 pounds. Many of them exceeded that, and with their bulging forehead and powerful jaws, one sight of them would send you running for the hills, or maybe to a different continent, not littered with all these gigantic canines. Borophagus diversitans lived in the Middle Miocene epoch and all the way through to the Pleistocene epoch. The range was about 12 million years ago to 1.8 million years ago. Now, when you hear about this big boy, you're probably thinking, that's the biggest canine that North America, or for that matter, planet Earth, ever saw, right? He was big, but no, he wasn't the biggest. And the scariest part is, Borophagus diversitans didn't lose this size contest by just a little bit. He comes in second place, but he wasn't even close to first. The biggest dog ever. So it sounded like North America has had tons of big dogs over the years, but who was the biggest dog of them all? That would have to be Epicyon haydeni. Epicyon haydeni was also from the Borophaginae subfamily, and all the canines in that subfamily had a special trait: powerful jaws. Jaws so powerful that they could crush bone. Scientists don't know for certain what the bite force was on Epicyon haydeni, but it had to be extremely strong, with the ability to bite through bone. For instance, spotted hyenas today that can crush bones and hooves with their jaws, they have a bite force of 1100 psi and are believed to have the 13th strongest bite of all living animals. Epicyon haydeni likely had at least that kind of strength, but due to the fact that he was much larger than a spotted hyena, it is believed his bite force was far stronger than that. Epicyon haydeni would dwarf today's largest hyena if he stood next to it. It would be lost in his shadow. Epicyon haydeni was 3 feet tall at the shoulder. Imagine one standing next to you, its shoulder would likely come up to your hip or higher. And more impressive than that was Epicyon haydeni's total body length. On average, they'd be 8 feet long. They averaged about 275 pounds in weight, but it's believed that plenty of them weighed well over 300 pounds. And with extensive research done on the remains that have been found, the heaviest one scientists were able to examine was believed to weigh around 375 pounds. That is massive. Let's make some comparisons so that you can fully grasp the size of Epicyon haydeni. For one, wild canines are just smaller than wild felines. That's how it goes out there in the world. The largest canine in the wild today is the grey wolf. That's not even as big as the third largest feline living in the world today, the jaguar. This is where Epicyon haydeni gets even more frightening, because we are basically telling you to imagine a canine with bone-crushing jaws. Now imagine it is bigger than a jaguar, the third largest feline in the world. In fact, you could even compare it to a lion. Lions get up to 8 feet in length, but will typically weigh closer to 500 pounds. So, this Epicyon haydeni, he was somewhere between a jaguar and a lion's size. But he wasn't an ambush predator, he was an endurance hunter. Something that size that could chase you all night long until you got tired and then, forget about it, lights out. Lions are in Africa, jaguars are in South America. If they had ancestors back in the Miocene epoch, then those ancestors likely stayed put on their separate continents. None of them would want to step foot in North America during the Miocene epoch, as that was when Epicyon haydeni ruled North America for nearly 15 million years. Epicyon haydeni lived for so long because he was beyond an apex predator. He was a step above that. Nothing can take down the nearly 400-pound bone crusher canine. An animal's best defense against Epicyon haydeni? Don't look delicious, and that was it. The areas that Epicyon haydeni roamed were run by him, and nothing was stopping him. Epicyon actually translates to more than a dog, which makes sense because this wasn't just a dog. It was like 2 huge dogs rolled into one. It was like some other breed of animal, like it had bear in its genetic makeup. In fact, scientists have said that grizzly bears may be the best animal to compare them to. Epicyon haydeni, when getting to those largest sizes that they could reach, were comparable to some inland grizzly bears in weight and size. That just makes the image scary all over again. But still, comparing it to a grizzly bear is still selling it short, because grizzly bears don't have anywhere near the kind of endurance that canines do. You wouldn't want to see a grizzly bear in the middle of the woods, and you'd want to see that bear even less if you knew he was a marathon runner. Epicyon haydeni is said to have a skull more like that of a lion than of a wolf. Are we sure this thing really was a canine? Bone-crushing jaws and teeth of a hyena, size of a bear, head of a lion? But Epicyon haydeni was all too real and was part of the canine family for certain. He had just taken on a unique form that we've never seen in a canine before. So, they ranged from eastern US all the way to the west, most fossils being found in central US, but also in northern parts of the continent too. This suggests to researchers that Epicyon haydeni was quite adaptable, able to sustain himself in cold climates, but also being able to thrive in hotter environments, both humid and dry. It takes a special kind of predator to be able to endure a multitude of climates and habitats like that. For instance, jaguars are generally only found in more tropical regions in South America and Central America. Lions are only found in Africa, in the warm and dry areas. Both those big cats wouldn't handle the cold too well. So, our apex predator just grows more and more in curiosity and in terror. Add another frightening feature to Epicyon haydeni, he can live in so many different places. There was no hiding from him. The animals that wished they could have hidden from Epicyon haydeni were the animals he called prey. Herbivores that existed during those times, like the camels that dwelled in those areas, the pronghorn cossyryx, horses like Neohyparion and Nanopus, and get this, even the rhinoceros known as Teleoceras. Did this canine just become one of the scariest predators we could imagine? He attacked and ate rhinos. Even lions seldom mess with a rhino when they come across one in Africa, but Epicyon haydeni regularly made meals out of them. He was the biggest dog to ever roam the world. He was powerful. He crushed through bones with his teeth. He took down camels and horses and rhinos. He was one of the scariest predators that North America has seen in millions of years.